Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. We're gonna get right into today's case. Today's case is a little bit longer, but if you've been watching true crime for a while, or you're 20 plus years older, or even just younger than me, you've probably heard of this case, and that is the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. We basically at this point know everything that happened the night Madeleine disappeared. She disappeared in 2007, and it's been almost, let's see, 17 is it's been almost 10 years. It's been, or 20 years. It's been 17 years. Yeah, 17 years. Madeleine and Ashley would be the same age as me, I do believe. She was around, I think she just turned 4, because I was born in 2003. I turned 4 in 2007, right? Yeah. So we're gonna get right into this. Like I just said, we know the basics of what happened that she went missing, but people have always speculated that it was a very odd way that she disappeared. So Madeleine was actually on vacation with her parents and her 2 younger siblings. They were twins, and they had went with a couple of friends to Portugal for just a vacation in 2007. The night she went missing, her parents and a couple of friends went to dinner, and the 4 of them had made a plan of how they were going to check on the kids every half hour. So I believe the other set of friends also had kids, and it would just be like every 30 minutes, one parent would go back to the hotel and they would check on the kids and everything. Every 30 minutes, one of the parents would go back and check in the 2 rooms of their kids, just to make sure that the kids were still asleep, and nothing had happened while they were gone. So when it was Kate McCann's turn, which is Madeleine's mom, when it was her turn to go check on the kids, she went and checked the rooms. But when she went to check her kid's room, this is around 10 p.m. the night that Madeleine went missing, she went to her kid's room and noticed that the shutters to their room were open and that Madeleine's bed was empty. So police were called, and over the hours, they joined Madeleine's parents and their friends along with the staff of the hotel complex they were in search for the missing toddler. I bet at this point they figured, oh, she probably got out. She probably woke up in the night, was confused where her mom and dad were. She went out this way, and she disappeared. Within the next days and months of Madeleine's disappearance, hundreds of police officers with volunteers searched the surrounding area, and they had no luck finding this little girl. And immediately when she disappeared, it sparked global interest. Of course, this is a 4-year-old little girl who up and vanished in the middle of the night. It's a very odd story of how every 30 minutes the parents were checking on the kids. If you really think about it, it is just very odd how the whole thing played out. But her case gained a very large following of people, and at this point, people were constantly checking the news. Was there an update on Madeleine? Had they found her? Is she dead? Is she alive? And there was also a large reward offered for any information about Madeleine's whereabouts. And by the way, this money, like the large reward, a lot of it came from celebrities who were in on the case. Contributions came from J.K. Rowling, Simon Cowell, and Richard Branson. Celebrities made appeals for people to help track Madeleine, and some of these people were famous football players, David Beckham and Cristiano Ronaldo. If you're American, they are soccer players. Just said football players because that's what they play in their minds. Madeleine's parents traveled extensively to publicize the search for the missing daughter, and even met the Pope Benedict XVI, I'm not sure what that is, in Rome to ask him to pray for the daughter's safe return. So, less than 2 weeks into Madeleine's disappearance investigation, on May 14th, police in Portugal named Robert Murat, a British man who was living in Portugal at the time, as an official suspect in the case. He denied the allegations and maintained his innocence, and he was withdrawn as a suspect, and no charges were ever brought to him for the disappearance of Madeleine. And keep in mind, this is, at this point, one of the most talked about cases. It's the early 2000s. We don't have the kind of resources we do now, almost 20 years later. Everybody wanted to find her. Everybody wanted to know who had taken this little girl, who had up and just vanished. It almost seemed like she was poof and gone. So police had a lot of pressure on them to find her. And every day that she was not found, more pressure was just adding on top of it. People at this point were like judging the conduct of the police the night Madeleine went missing. And the Portuguese police chief in June of 2007 admitted that forensic clues may have been destroyed at the apartment that they were staying in because it wasn't securely like protected. Like they didn't cross it off. They didn't let people not in. Other than if you were police, they let basically anybody in. In September, Portuguese police also designated suspect status on Kate and Gary, who were Madeleine's parents, in the case of their daughter's disappearance. This I think this is very weird. This came after reportedly finding suspicious DNA in a car the family rented 25 days after Madeleine went missing. Basically, they put the suspect, well, I think everybody was kind of suspecting her parents. They officially made them suspects when they found some odd DNA that they linked to Madeleine. But keep in mind, these are also Madeleine's biological parents. Her siblings were probably in this car. They're her biological siblings. Their DNA is going to somewhat match in a sense. But Kate actually said that the Portuguese police were trying to get her to falsely confess that Madeleine died in an accident and that the couple panicked and disposed of her body. But Kate and Gary have both denied any wrongdoing in their daughter's disappearance. Gary actually went on to a Spanish TV show and he said he was confident that him and his wife would be eliminated from inquiries, like just basically being accused of killing their daughter. So in March of 2008, almost a year after Madeleine went missing, her parents accepted $1.1 million in libel damages and front page apologies from the London newspapers, the Daily Express and the Daily Star, over stories that these two had published alleging that the parents were involved in Madeleine's disappearance. And this money actually went to a fund. It was Madeleine's fund, and it's a non-profit company set up to find the girl and bring justice to anyone who played a role in her disappearance. Basically, it was money that her parents had saved as a non-profit to find their daughter and bring the people who had any connection to her disappearance to justice. And in July of 2008, Portugal's Attorney General ended the police investigation into Madeleine's disappearance, which is absolutely heartbreaking. You don't want your daughter, who's been missing for a year at this point, you don't want her investigation to just go cold. But a spokesman for the Portuguese prosecutor's office said that the 14-month investigation had not uncovered any evidence of a crime. The three people they had named as suspects, Murat, and her parents. Those were the three main suspects. And at this point, with the case effectively closed, the police had turned over its case file, which contained up to 30,000 pages of their investigation into Madeleine's disappearance, to attorneys that worked for the McCanns. They were determined to find their daughter, and now that they had the police reports, the police file, they could work. And Kate McCann had stated that they would leave no stone unturned to look for their daughter, which I believe is such a lovely thing to do. A lot of parents whose children go missing constantly talk about them, and I think that's something that a lot of these disappearances have, is that the parents are constantly looking for and pushing for police investigation. In August, so a month later, after the police had just kind of stopped the investigation, a spokesman for the McCann family said that they believed that Madeleine was alive, which came from reviewing the police files that had been given to the family, and in the files it did not reveal any evidence that Madeleine had been killed. So at this point, it's a year and a half later, they still have a lot of hope that Madeleine is alive. To this day, a lot of people think she's alive. A lot of people think she's dead just because it's been almost 20 years. But back to what I was saying about the DNA and how they linked her parents as suspects because it was DNA that somewhat matched Madeleine's. The files that the police handed over showed that a forensic scientist said it was impossible to conclude whether a DNA sample from the family's car came from Madeleine. Like I'm saying, she has two biological siblings and two biological parents. Their DNA is all going to be very similar. I mean, her parents made these three kids. These three kids are going to have somewhat similar DNA just because they're siblings and they have the same parents. Especially the twins, they're going to have almost identical DNA because they're twins. So, So 2 years later, in May 2009, Gary and Kate appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show, trying to keep Madeleine's name and story in the media in hopes that she would come home. They even shared a digital enhanced image of Madeleine. This would be what she looked like at 6 years old. Kate said during the show that she actually kept Madeleine's room identical to how it was when she disappeared, ready for her whenever she came home, and that she even visited the room daily just to keep her hope of finding her daughter in her. She would walk in there and she would just kind of look around and have that hope to find her, because this room was still set up the same way. It's just amazing. And in 2011, the McCanns published their own account of Madeleine's disappearance, and they simply titled it Madeleine. They said that they hoped the book would promote others to come forward with information, and that any profits made by the book were directed basically right towards back to the investigation, probably towards the fund of finding Madeleine. While the book was coming out, the London Metropolitan Police formed an investigative review, which was aimed at going through the details of the case. After a year-long review of the files, the London police released a fresh computer-generated image of Madeleine, showing her at the age of 9. They said that because of the evidence uncovered during the review, they believe she was still alive. So this is like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is 5 years after Madeleine's disappeared. She would be 9 years old. They still had hope she was alive and that whoever had her was just keeping her locked up, I guess. In October of 2013, the family was given more hope when the British police issued new sketches of a potential suspect in the case. An appeal on the BBC TV show Crime Watch led to more than 1,000 calls from the public, with 2 of the callers naming the same suspect. And that same month, the Portuguese police said they would reopen Madeleine's case. Police in both UK and Portugal would work together on their investigations to pursue new leads. In January of the following year, 2014, authorities in Portugal received a letter from British prosecutors asking to interview 3 people in connection with the 2007 disappearance. UK detectives flew out shortly after, but there was no arrest made in connection with those 3 people they wanted to interview. But in March of 2014, it emerged that officers were looking for a man who assaulted 5 other young British girls on vacation in Portugal while investigating 12 potentially linked crimes in resorts near where Madeleine vanished, all in the same time. In June of 2020, a major breakthrough came in the case, and I vividly remember in 2020 when this was like all over the news, that they had made some kind of groundbreaking discovery in her case. But this major breakthrough was when British and German authorities announced that they were investigating a 43-year-old German man in connection with Madeleine's disappearance. He was actually later named in German media as Christian B, and UK authorities described the development in this suspect as a significant new line of inquiry. So the suspect had lived in Portugal's Algarve region between 1995 and 2007, and lived in a house in Praia de Luz, and was actually a convicted rapist and a child sex abuser, currently serving a jail sentence for the rape of a 72-year-old woman in Portugal. In an interview with CNN in the weeks that followed, German prosecutor Hans Christian Wolters said that they had findings that showed the new suspect had murdered Madeleine, but not enough evidence to bring the case to court. So at this point, that hope of Madeleine being alive is kind of thrown to the wind. They believe at this point she's not alive. In response to this new development in her case, her parents thanked the police forces for the continued efforts to find their daughter, and said that all we ever wanted was to find her, uncover the truth, and bring those responsible to justice. We will never give up hope of finding Madeleine alive, but whatever the outcome may be, we need to know, as we need to find peace. Her parents, at this point, as you can tell, were kind of still hoping she was alive, but knowing that there could possibly be an outcome where she isn't. In July of 2020, Portuguese authorities conducted searches of 3 wells related to the investigation, but a local law enforcement source said that no new information was discovered. And in April of 2022, Portuguese and German officials designated the new suspect, who was now identified as Christian Bruckner, as an official suspect. It was the first time Portuguese prosecutors identified a formal suspect in the case since they cleared Madeleine's parents. The following months, Hans Christian Wolters reiterated his position, and he was sure that Bruckner had killed Madeleine. And in May of last year, May 22nd, 2023, German authorities told CNN there would be a new search in Portugal based on a recent tip they had received. So the German authorities, London authorities, and Portugal are all probably working together at this point. They know the ins and outs, and they are constantly communicating with each other, saying, we've got this lead, we need help, or this, that, anything. And the search began the next day on the CeraAddair Reservoir near the Portuguese city of Silves, around 50 kilometers from Praia da Luz, where the suspect had lived around the time that Madeleine went missing. Police divers and speedboats were seen at the site and expected to be there for around 2 days. Authorities said excavations had been conducted which uncovered material that would be sent for analysis. Without providing details on what had been found, apparently these waters had been searched in 2008, a year after she went missing, but nothing turned up then. Police were looking for evidence to support an official charge against Bruckner in the Madeleine's case, and sources said that this time it was not an underwater search as it was the ground above the water. Apparently the search was ordered after pictures of the reservoir were found on Bruckner's computer. Bruckner also apparently spent a lot of time at the body of water while residing in Portugal, referring to this body of water as paradise. So, in 2023, the McCann family marked the 16th anniversary of Madeleine's disappearance. They said that she was still, to this day, very much missed, and they were awaiting a breakthrough on her case. So, when I was researching this case a couple weeks ago, by the time I'm releasing it, it was like a month ago. But when I was researching this, I constantly, when I look at cases, I always go to like an older website, find as much information as I can. I go back to the main Google page, and then I hit news to see the newer articles for it. This one always has new updates just because it's an ongoing case. But a day before I was researching, I saw an article that said a witness who was acquainted with the suspect came forward with details that could help the case. So apparently, Bruckner had boasted about using a burglary kit to access the apartment that Madeleine and her siblings were in the night she disappeared. This witness also recounted finding the toolkit, like that burglary kit that Bruckner's used, and apparently he used this toolkit to break into resorts and Holiday's apartment to steal from tourists. Like I mentioned earlier, he was actually somewhat linked to all these kinds of break-ins and assaults towards these other younger people. And that's the only new piece of evidence I could find in this case. And very similar to the Delphi girls and the Menendez brothers case, I will constantly be looking for new updates. Again, it's a very publicized case. There's always going to be updates about it on the news. But yeah, I'm going to be, if there's ever any information given that they saw this case, you can expect a video for it. But this is also one of those cases that has stuck with me, very similar to the Delphi girls and to Alyssa Turney. This year in 2024, I really wanted to focus on true crime cases that stick with me, that have something about it that sticks with me. And I, again, am the same age as Madeleine. I didn't know that I was the same age as her until I was researching it, realizing that she would be turning 21 in just a short few months. And she's been missing pretty much her entire life. If Madeleine is alive, she probably has no clue that her name is Madeleine. She probably has a completely different name. They've probably colored her hair. They have probably done everything they can to make sure this little girl has no clue who she is. And if she's not alive, then how long has she been dead? That's just, at this point, we want to know what happened to her. And I don't know if this case recently stuck with me, because I was recently just thinking about this case. If it's because I'm her age, or if it's because I'm an aunt and I couldn't imagine being on vacation, and then all of a sudden, when I have a 5-year-old niece, like if she up and disappeared, I would be so similar to Madeleine's parents. Or if it's because I'm currently working in a preschool room and couldn't imagine one day learning that one of my students disappeared. Like, it would be, yeah, I don't know. And this is something that I've always thought of when thinking about Madeleine's case, is why didn't they just eat earlier in the night? Why didn't they just take the kids with them? And I know that everyone's like, well, because parents want a break from their kids. I get that. My best friend as a kid, there are times where she's just kind of laid back and she just wants somebody else to help with her kid. And I get that. But it's small things that kind of make you go, well, if they hadn't have ate that late at night, maybe Madeleine would still be here. Or maybe if they'd stayed at the apartment, or one of them stayed with the kids, you know, like maybe the dads go get something to eat and the mom stay with the kids, and then they flip-flop and the dad's staying, maybe Madeleine would be still here. But this is one of those cases that has just stuck with me, and like I stated earlier, I want to do just cases that have stuck with me all year. I have a long list of cases that have stuck with me, but I also wanted to give you guys some kind of break from true crime, so there will be a couple paranormal videos in between. Maybe not my own paranormal videos, personal experiences, but I want to do those too, because those are something that intrigues me. And I really want to know your guys' thoughts on this case. What are your thoughts on the case? I mean, it's been almost 20 years since this little girl went missing. I've just always wondered what happened to her, and I guess that's everyone's thought. And if you have any theories about what happened, if you have any theories about the case, please leave them down below, because that is just something that I love, is reading comments on true crime videos to see the theories of what people think. It just allows me to kind of have a new, maybe a different outlook on the case and everything. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. And remember, you guys can recommend a video. I'm not saying that I won't do your video if you recommend it. I also think it's really cool if you guys give me cases I've probably never heard of before. The last time I did a recommended video, I had actually never heard of that case. And it was so hard to find the phone because it was so small. I think that's something that I liked, that was kind of getting a more smaller case out. So yeah, but you guys can always recommend. And as always, it will be up on the screen as I talk about it. I highly recommend you guys give me anything to do. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. So hopefully that's not too long from now, but bye.